we are. We're going to hit record. We're hitting record.
Great. All right. Well, thank you. Welcome, everyone, to this export session where we are focusing on exporting as a strategy to grow your business for Western Maryland companies. I'm Jessica Reynolds. I'm the director of the Office of International Investment and Trade at the Maryland Department of Commerce. We have a great lineup of speakers for you this afternoon, and we are looking forward to getting back to some of these export outreach events as we are coming out of COVID a little bit here, although we are still virtual today. So our first speaker this morning is, I did also want to mention you are being recorded. This event is being recorded. And also we will do Q&A at the end, but please feel free to go ahead and put questions in the chat throughout, and then we will either pull those questions from the chat at the end, or you are also welcome to raise your hand and speak. So our first speaker this afternoon is Andrew Krynick. He is with the Office of International Investment and Trade at the Maryland Department of Commerce, and he has a great presentation for you on why you should consider exporting. So Andrew, if you want to put yourself on, and
Sure.
I will go ahead and start for you.
Okay. This is Andrew Krynick from the Maryland Department of Commerce. I'm the regional manager for Europe and Australia. Previous to being at the Maryland Department of Commerce, I did have a manufacturing company and I built a worldwide distribution network. So I have a lot of experience with exporting. You know, I've given this program several times pre-COVID and it was always in person. This is the first time I'm doing it virtually. I'm used to a lot of audience interaction, so this is going to be a challenge for me, just speaking to a screen. But anyway, let's go to the slide. You can change, Jessica. Okay, so small business export. You know, small businesses actually account for 98% of exporters. You know, I have the year there as 2012 because that was a reliable pre-COVID number. If you look at the COVID numbers from 2021, for instance, you'll see that there's a difference. But there were over 300,000 identified U.S. exporters in 2012. And that trend was increasing about 10% a year. However, because of COVID, a lot of the numbers, of course, went down because a lot of companies couldn't get overseas. There were supply chain issues, et cetera. But just to let you know that about 1/3 of the export value of U.S. goods is done by small businesses. Next slide, please. Yeah. So what are the benefits of exporting? Naturally, increased sales and profits. Exporting can be profitable for business of all sizes. On the average, sales grow faster, more jobs are created, and employees can earn more money than in non-exporting firms. And I can speak from experience. This is true. You know, you will find that your sales can grow faster once you successfully launch an export program. Next page. Next. Okay. So one of the benefits of exporting is that you have reduced dependence on existing markets. If companies are just selling within the US market, you know, when times are great, that's wonderful, but sometimes times are not so great. And if you're able to successfully export, then then you'll be able to balance out when one economy is increasing, and one economy is going down. You're increasing your customer base and you're creating additional revenue for your company. Next slide, please.
Sorry for the delay, Andrew. There seems to be a delay coming through for you.
Okay. So let's say you have existing products that have kind of, they've plateaued. You may have increased competition. It could be that the product lifestyle return in your home market. However, by exporting, you're reaching new markets, so you may have less competition in those markets, and you're starting a whole new product life cycle within that new market. So it can give life to your existing products. Next slide, please. So something else to consider, it depends if you have a seasonal product. Remember that when it's winter in the Northern Hemisphere, it's summer in the Southern Hemisphere and vice versa. So those businesses that have products or services that do have seasonal market fluctuations can benefit by playing one season against the other and selling in the different hemispheres. Next slide, please. One of the big points about exporting is the utilization of excess capacity, production capacity. You know, that's how I found exports to be very useful, in that I was able to utilize, because I had the increased sales, and because I was able to have different product life cycle maturity levels in different markets, I was able to use my production capacity. So I was able to reduce my excess production capacity. Next slide, please. So you also improve the potential for the company expansion and value. Exporting can be profitable. In fact, it should be profitable. Otherwise, you really don't want to do it. And on the average, sales grow faster, more jobs created. And what you're doing is you're improving the profitability of your company. So this is not only related to revenue, but if part of your strategy is that you want to sell your company, what you're doing is you're increasing the value of your company, you're increasing the scope of the company, you're making it a much more attractive candidate to be purchased by another company. Next slide, please. So how easy is it to export? I have to say it is much easier than most people imagine. There are, and we're going to be discussing about some of the resources and some of the supports you have. These resources have made exporting actually very easy. There have been improvements in trade finance, the internet, of course. There are trade agreements that lower, reduce, or eliminate tariffs in a lot of very interesting markets. And what you have to remember is that if you have a website, you're already an international company, and you have to start preparing yourself for export sales if you haven't. You know, I've heard of some people say, well, I don't export. And I say, well, do you get any sales from other markets? And they'll say, well, yeah, I get sales from Canada. And I remind people that Canada, if you're selling to Canada, you are exporting. I've had some companies say, well, you know, I really am not interested in the risk because I don't know how I'm going to be paid. Well, there are all sorts of programs to assess companies now. Like I said, there are improvements in trade finance. So you have anything from credit insurance that could assist you. You can have, like I said, we will go more into the resources, but you can have Maryland Department of Commerce has consultants overseas that can assist you in doing reputational analysis. The US Department of Commerce can act as an advocate. So you're really, it really actually easy to export. Next slide, please. So, is there a market? Absolutely. More than 95% of consumers and more than 70% of the world purchasing power is located outside the US. So if you have a product and you successfully promote it, you will find you have many more potential consumers, and access to much more purchasing power if you are exporting. And remember too, that your competitors may be increasing their global share. And if they're increasing their global share, then actually they're strengthening the value of their companies. They're strengthening their companies overall. And you may find that if you are not exporting, that your competitors will have an advantage over you. Next slide, please. So, as terms of, when we look at export demand as exports as a percentage of GDP, take a look at Germany. 45% of the GDP in Germany is export oriented. China is 22%. The US is only 13.5%. So we have a long way to go, and US companies and US products are highly regarded. They're known for high quality, they're known for innovation, generally known for good service, good customer service, and sound business practices. And that's really important, the sound business practices. We have the rule of law here. We have a code of ethics here. That's not always, you don't always get that same support system in other countries. So the US is known to provide quality goods, and they are in demand. It's not all just a matter of price. So outside the US, people are looking for the best way to solve their needs, and that is not just through low prices, but through high quality and innovation, and the kind of positive support that they will be getting with their customer service. Next slide, please. So how about services? I mean, we talked, people generally think of products as being the way to, as being the export. However, services are huge now. It shows here that 32% of US exports are services. That percentage is increasing. Think of services, financial services, insurance services, consulting services, engineering services, cybersecurity services. There's a huge range of services, and that is growing fast. Next slide, please. So what we're going to be talking about today are the kinds of resources that can give you support. Whether you're a first-time exporter or you're expanding exporter. And I encourage all of you who are listening to use these services, because it will make your exporting effort easier and probably much more successful. Next slide. So this is my contact information, and we'll have this slide deck available, so you'll be able to have my contact information. Thank you, and thank you, Jessica.
Thanks, Andrew. So next we have a couple of companies from the Western Maryland region who have very kindly volunteered their time to speak with you all today and just give a little bit about their export experiences. So first up, we have Tim Rollins with Medisign.
Thank you, Jessica. And as Jessica mentioned, my name is Tim Rollins. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Medisign, and we're a Western Maryland high-tech company in healthcare. And I've known everyone on this call for a while, so I'm going to take the liberty to pick on Andrew for a second about one thing he said, which is that export is easy. And export itself, I see export as not being easy, but I can tell you the team of people on this call, the commerce team, the resources they offer and the services they offer, that's what makes export easy. And that's something that is very helpful. So talking about our experience with export and utilizing these services that Andrew was referring to, I'm going to talk about our experience. I'm going to boil it down into really three main points. The first point is market research. So 3 main areas that we were helped with: market research, number 2, trade shows, number 3, distributor and partner vetting. All 3 very key components for export. So for us, breaking down into each of those points, number 1, market research. When you're first diving into export, even the thought of export, I can tell you from experience, it can be overwhelming. So you think to yourself, where do I start? And that's both figuratively, where do I start? And also literally, where, as in geography, do I start? So that's where this team first started helping us with the services they provide. They met with us, they studied our offerings, our solutions, what we do, why we do it, what problems it solves, and worked with us to identify what was required for it to be successful elsewhere, and turned that into criteria for an international market research campaign that they took on for us. And that is something that is valuable. And let me tell you, it was some very, very, very specific criteria. And we honestly had low expectations because most of the stuff that we were looking for in this criteria weren't things that are in a database or things that can be easily found out. It required them calling on their contacts, leveraging international relationships that they've forged to get this information for us. And out of all of that, they came back with a beautiful, organized, and prioritized, lowest hanging fruit to a little higher up on the tree list of where to start and what we needed to know about each and every one. Now, this is where the second main point comes in for us on where to start, which is figuratively, okay, I've got this information now, where do I go next? And for us, that was point number 2, which is trade shows. So I know what you're thinking, trade shows, right? Especially in this current era, busy trade show floors are probably the worst place to pitch your product, but we weren't pitching. This was this team leading us on phase 2 of our market research. So taking that beautiful market research report they put together for us and putting it to the test by speaking with representatives from those target countries. And they did this by taking us to multiple trade shows, the first of which was Medica, which is one of, if not the largest medical trade show conference in the world. It's held in Dusseldorf, Germany. And there's representation from nearly every major and even most minor countries in the world at this show. And this team helped us set appointments with government representatives from each of our target countries at that show. So that list that we had, that low-hanging fruit and climbing, we were able to get meetings with those individual country representatives at the show. So these were essentially interviews, as in us interviewing the ambassador from the foreign country about their market, how our products and services could fit into their models and things they're doing. And what was beautiful about that was the brutal honesty that we got from that research. It wasn't a sales setting where you never get the honest truth. It was real, honest, factual advice directly from these foreign government agents. And as if that wasn't enough, this team even went further to help us set up additional meetings that were ultimately probably out of scope while we were on the trade show floor at this event in other areas that we had interest in that weren't even on our primary list originally. And one of those I'll share was with the French government, which when I approached the booth for the French government, they essentially had no interest in speaking with me. When I went there on my own, I was essentially a nobody. I'm a guy in a suit, and they didn't really want to talk. But one of the amazing team members from this team, their counterpart, who was in our booth, happens to speak 4 or 5 different languages, French being one of them. So she took a stroll over to the booth and she spoke with the French as a US government representative, a Maryland government representative as well. And now all of a sudden we had instant credibility. The French couldn't wait to speak to us, and suddenly they all spoke perfect English as well. And this is something that was extremely useful. This team goes above and beyond. I could go on all day, but I'm not going to. They also repeated this for us on our second research mission at Arab Health in Dubai, United Arab Emirates. So being able to leverage the credibility this team brings to you as a business is an invaluable opportunity that basically just doesn't exist outside of these programs. That situation I talked about with approaching the French and how this team made that possible, whereas before it was not. Moving on and rounding out here on my third point is distributor and partner vetting. So at this point, we're armed with all of this market research. We have an unimaginable education on our international marketplace and no shortage of leads to work through. And our team started pursuing a solid distribution partner lead in Dubai. There was a lot of interest for our products in Dubai. Dubai was a market for us that likes to emulate what America is doing with a couple extra chandeliers. And we had countless meetings with them, with this potential partner. We even did our own vetting. They even provided references that all checked out. And we were essentially ready to bring them on board. We even went as far as to have an execution-ready distribution agreement drafted and ready to go. And then our wonderful friends here on this call heard news of this and said, well, whoa, hold the reins. As you can imagine, we have resources for this. We have programs for this. So they can vet distribution sources and ensure that they're really a good fit. And we did that. And boy, were we glad we did, because little did we know, in UAE and many other parts of the world, there are basically posing distribution companies who are preying on US technology. As Andrew mentioned, it's very sought after. And they make a great deal, which ultimately comes a bad deal for the US company. They do things like lie about their size, their capabilities, and so on and so forth. And they'll go to great lengths to make sure that they pass these tests of vetting that normal organizations are capable of seeing through. But luckily, as the theme continues, our commerce team has a long arm of extensive resources and capabilities, programs, like Andrew mentioned, that no business traditionally has access to. They can knock on doors, they can break through this fake facade. And that's exactly what we were about to walk into. The distributor ended up being the complete opposite of what was represented. And the commerce team saved us from a potentially very bad deal. And not only did they save us from a bad deal, they found us real, vetted, quality distributors to choose from when we're ready to do so. So in closing, this team brings you resources you can't normally access on your own, networking like you've never seen before, truly, international networking like you've never seen before, and credibility that you desperately need when entering these foreign markets, depending on what it is you're selling or offering. So like every opportunity, you have to be ready to capitalize on it, and you'll get out of it what you put into it. So be prepared, ask questions. These guys have the answers, and go into this with a game plan that these amazing folks can guide you through along the way. If you're serious about export and growing your business, you're already talking to the right people and the best in the business with this commerce team. So take advantage of those programs that truly are wonderful.
Wow. Well, great. Thanks, Tim. That was a very good summary. Thank you for that. I want to also introduce next Mr. Robert Mullen with Noventry.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Jessica just said, my name is Robert Mullen. I'm the Director of Sales here at Noventry. We are a technology company located in Western Maryland, and we cater primarily to hotels. And the need for Noventry was to actually start selling internationally. So I had started with Canada. I thought Canada was close by. They're very, very similar. Should be fairly easy to reach out and start talking to hotels up there. And I found that to be, oh, okay. Requesting a video. I can turn that on. Okay. You can see me now? Yes. Okay. So my goal was to start selling internationally. I picked Canada, and I did not have much luck getting anybody to return calls or emails or anything like that. And then I met this fabulous team here from Maryland. And at first, I was a little bit skeptical because I am dealing with the government here and I didn't have high expectations. But boy, they were fantastic. First thing they did is they learned about what Noventry does and why we do it and who we want to sell to. And then they connected me with some great team members up in Canada that they work with. And they went right to work for me. It was almost like having team members up in Canada. First thing they did was they found out what kind of hotels I wanted to sell to and what I do. And they reached out to everybody. First of all, they found everybody that I needed to reach out to. And that was a big deal, huge deal to find all the clients up there. And then they reached out and they contacted everybody. And with the authority of the state of Maryland and the United States behind them, we got something like an 85 to 90% response rate. Not everybody said, yes, we like your product, but I found out that they didn't. They weren't interested. And so I was presented with an excellent Excel sheet with a long list of potential clients to reach out to. And not only that, but warm clients who were expecting my call and ready to talk with me. And I was just very, very impressed with that. And as a result, I did get a couple of sales. They were delayed because of COVID, about 18 months. But a few months ago, a lot of those clients started popping out of the woodwork and reaching back out to me, ready to restart conversations. And it's just been an overall fantastic experience. And I guess I'll conclude with this. In meeting the team and speaking with the team, the thing that impressed me the most is the deep business background that everyone on the team had. Again, I had the low expectations in the beginning, thinking it was going to be government bureaucrats and just whoever working. But the more I got to know the team and work with them, they are like having business expert consultants helping you with this. Again, Canada seemed like it was close, but it was much more difficult than I anticipated, and they came to my rescue. Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks, Robert. Thanks both to Tim and Robert for sharing your experiences. I know it's some time out of your busy day, but we do appreciate you being willing to share those with other companies who may be looking at this, but wondering if it's worth their time. So thank you.
My pleasure.
So your next speaker is actually me, and I'm going to go over briefly some of the resources that were mentioned by Andrew, Tim, and Robert here at the Department of Commerce. And then after I go over those resources at the state level, you'll also hear from a couple of our other colleagues and partners in the federal government, as well as at the University of Maryland. So first, I'm just going to give you a very brief overview of the services that we do have at the Maryland Department of Commerce, some of which were mentioned. First of all, we have the Export MD grant program. We do offer grants to support export marketing for small businesses in the state of Maryland. I'll go into that in a little more detail on my next slide. We also do offer trade show support, as Tim mentioned. He mentioned Medica and Arab Health. And although, we are still in an era of COVID, we did return to in-person trade shows this past November. We were back at Medica after almost 2 years, but we were back and they had put a lot of procedures in place to keep it safe. And our team, we're able to stay safe and have a successful show there this year. We do offer non-medical shows as well. We typically attend between 7 and 10 trade shows a year and invite small companies to attend those shows with us at a highly subsidized rate. We also offer what we call the FlexX program, which was also referred to in terms of connecting you with resources in the markets. So in Maryland, we have 18 foreign offices, and we offer up to 20 hours of free consulting assistance with those offices each year. So we cover more or less the globe, not every market, but we do cover a lot of the most common markets that are requested with that program. And those services can include the market research, the distributor search, et cetera. We do also offer a reimbursement thanks to STEP funds from the SBA for, I have listed here the USEAC, or the U.S. Export Assistance Center, and Kerry Esslinger is speaking after me, and he'll go into more detail about what those services are, as well as the Export-Import Bank of the United States. They offer, services that can assist exporters as well, such as insurance, and so, if you take advantage of those services, come to us at Commerce, and although we aren't executing those services for you, we can reimburse you 2/3 of the cost of the fees that you may be paying for those services. We also work with the University of Maryland at the Smith School of Business Center for Global Business on the Maryland Global Consulting Program. This is a program where you can be matched with a team of students, business students, to assist you with a business issue you may be facing, international business issue, and Commerce participates in that program, and I'll let Marina speak about that in a little more detail. We also have recently launched a soft landing program, which the first phase of that was to work with foreign companies who might be wanting to come into Maryland, because that is the other aspect of what we do besides export in our office. However, we have already started to build a reciprocal network through our partners around the world, where Maryland companies who are looking to go into other markets can benefit from a soft landing in those locations in order to help you get into those markets and explore those markets and have your hand held a little bit through our similar agencies and partners in other countries. So the Export MD program is by far our most popular program, or the program that makes our phones ring, because it is a grant program. So these are small grants, but they can help companies who are a little hesitant to look at exporting or might be nervous about the risk. This gives you a chance to explore exporting without taking on the full financial cost yourself. So we will reimburse up to 2/3 of your expenses to $5,000. So as you can see on the slide, that means $7,500 worth of expenses in order to get the full reimbursement. And these are for marketing oriented expenses. So a number of the eligible expenses are listed here, such as fees for shipping sample products. It also includes e-commerce and website activities. And what I would say most people did use this for pre-COVID, and probably will use again post-COVID, is for attending trade shows and business development trips. So for those travel costs, your flights, hotels, registration fees, but it can also cover for virtual events as well. A lot of trade shows have gone virtual. Sometimes the registration fees are still pretty high, even though you don't have the travel costs. And so we can support that as well. We accept these applications on a rolling basis. We accept on the 1st of every month, and feel free to contact myself or Andrew or any of the other members of our Maryland Commerce team if you are interested in applying for the Export MD grant. It is specifically for small businesses. We do receive funding. About half of our funding for this program comes from the SBA through our STEP grant program, and you do need to be a Maryland business, but we try to keep the eligibility requirements, not too onerous, because we want to try and get more companies exporting. This is a little bit more detail on those other services that I mentioned, since I went through these and discussed them already. I won't mention them in more detail here. But if you have questions on any of the other Maryland programs, again, reach out to myself. Here's my contact information, or anyone at the Maryland Commerce team. Andrew Sargent, also assisted us quite a bit in coordinating this event here for Western Maryland, and he's a great first point of contact for companies in that region as well. So again, we'll have the PowerPoint available if you would like my contact information afterwards. So next, I do want to introduce Kerry Esslinger with the U.S. Commercial Service. He is with that office that I mentioned at the U.S. Export Assistance Center, which represents U.S. Commercial Service for the state of Maryland. So I'm going to let him take over from here with the federal resources.
Great. Well, thanks, Jessica. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kerry Esslinger with the U.S. Department of Commerce. I'm in our small field office, the Baltimore U.S. Export Assistance Center. So we cover the state of Maryland. and I cover a number of different regions. Western Maryland is one of the areas in which I cover. Next slide, please. So we have a lot of functions here in the Commerce Department, from working on trade policy, import policy, briefing Congress on trade matters and the like. But I wanted to give you a handful of key resources you can keep in mind as you think about growing your export business. So on this slide here, each orange balloon represents where we have staff or team. And the purple dots represent our partner organization, the State Department. So each one of these locations is staffed by a commercial officer working with a group of local nationals who have deep connections and roots throughout a variety of industries. So this is where the source of our work comes from abroad. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, there's a handful of key services here, and I'll just run through these briefly, things to keep in mind. We do market intelligence. So if you're ever looking at a market, let's say you're looking at Nigeria and you say, I don't know if there's potential here or not, we can run this out to our colleagues overseas. They can survey the industry and come back with a report and let you know what our findings are. The international partner search is essentially a short list of vetted prospects in country, 1 to 5 potential vetted prospects with their contact info. We can also do virtual introductions to go along with that and help you schedule those calls. The international company profile is basically a background check. So if, for example, you're attending a trade show, a company comes up to you, a Chinese company, and says, we'd like to represent you in China. You don't really have any insight on this company. We can go out and we could send staff out there to visit their facilities, interview their executives, and basically provide you with a Dun & Bradstreet type report on our findings, our financial findings on that, identifying any potential red flags that you may be dealing with that company. Our Gold Key service is really our marquee service. This is what we're best known for. And essentially, this is a scenario where we vent 1 to 5 potential partners, agents, distributors in a given market, and then host in-person meetings for the US companies. So if, for example, you said we need to find a distributor in Germany, we would work with our colleagues overseas. The US company would then fly in country. We would host the meetings at the embassy, a hotel, wherever appropriate. We would sit and staff the meetings with you, providing transportation and translation as needed. So very helpful service. And it also adds the added credibility of the US government sitting next to you in a meeting. The single company promotion is really a specialized marketing service that we offer in some countries. This is a catered event for a US company hosted at the embassy, the ambassador's residence, or the like. We work with you to generate a guest list and send out the invites with the gold eagle on it. Usually to a targeted audience of foreign government officials or industry leaders. So it's really a marketing opportunity, very useful tool in certain markets. And lastly, here is our website globalization. This is a new tool. As was mentioned earlier, if your website is online, you're in the international market. So we could take a look at your website, run a full analysis, compare it to competitors, look at your keyword searches, identify technical issues, and give guidance on how best to tailor your site for an international audience. I didn't include here our advocacy, which is a separate group. So if you're ever competing on a foreign government tender, we do advocate on behalf of US companies. This is a process you have to apply for. If there are more than one US companies competing on a foreign government tender, then our position is always by US, and we cannot favor one US company over another. And lastly, also I'll mention is we do a large number of trade missions and trade shows each year. Our trade missions can be fairly sizable in scope. We have one coming up in March that's over 150 different companies covering a handful of markets. So next slide, please. So in addition to our services, we have another internal organization that focuses specifically on rural companies. So if you are in a rural area, you are eligible for their services. They also do extensive market research and partner lists as well. Happy to help you connect with them. Okay, and final slide, please. So we are supported by our District Export Council, our DEC, as we call it. The DEC is made up of a group of individuals from a cross-section of industries: manufacturing, finance, freight forwarding, law, accounting, local government, education, et cetera. And they act as our advisory board of sorts. Once a year, our DEC hosts a great program called the Export Tech. And the Export Tech is basically an executive training program for a handful of companies, where we take a handful of companies' executives and their teams, sit down and help them develop an export plan that basically runs from A to Z. Each company is given a public sector and a private sector coach advisor to help put together the plan. And at the end of the months-long session, they give a presentation to the group. Lastly, our DEC, some of our DEC members do offer some free time and counseling available across their various specialities, but that's really on a case-by-case basis. So great, and that's all I had for my stuff. So just wanted to thank everyone for being here.
Great, thanks, Carrie. So last but not least, we have Marina Akoustides with the Center for Global Business at the Smith School of Business at the University of Maryland.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for being here. I'll briefly cover our partnership within the MAPIT Alliance and several of our programs and resources that your company can leverage to begin or continue expanding globally. Next slide, please. The Center for Global Business is part of the state's international business ecosystem and a partner of the MAPIT Alliance, the partnership that brings you this webinar today. Part of our mission as recipients of the CIBE, or Centers for International Business Education, a Title VI grant from the U.S. Department of Education, is to serve as a Maryland resource center for companies seeking to take their goods and services into the global marketplace. The MAPIT Alliance, or Maryland Partners in International Trade, includes the organizations represented here today and brings together key partners from industry, local, state, and federal government, and higher education to raise awareness of existing export promotion programs. We facilitate greater access to usage of these resources and build new collaborative globally focused programs. Next slide, please. The center offers programs to support global expansion efforts of Maryland companies. The Global Marketing Virtual Internship Program is a 10-week internship program over the summer focused on website globalization and digital marketing. Undergraduate students are placed in pairs with Maryland companies that export their products and services abroad. The program provides Maryland companies with help expanding their international customer base through digital marketing. And although there is a minimal program fee, it is matched by the center to pay for student stipends. And our partnership with the Maryland Department of Commerce allows eligible companies to apply for the Export MD grant to cover up to 2/3 of the expense of the program. Interns provide global marketing, website globalization, social media and analytics, and search engine optimization. Applications for the summer will open in early spring. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have interest. Next slide, please. Another opportunity through the center, as Jessica mentioned, is the Maryland Global Consulting Program. This program supports Maryland-based companies or small to medium-sized companies in their efforts to expand their business globally or solve an international business challenge. Teams of MBA or undergraduate students are matched with companies to work on projects that typically include market assessments, market entry, and/or export distribution plans, just to name a few. And this program can run over the fall or spring semesters or over the summer. The program also charges a minimal fee to companies. However, 2/3 of this program is also reimbursable through the Export MD grant. Clients receive recommendations to their International Business Challenge in the form of a final presentation and a report at the end of the semester. Applications for the spring are rolling, so if you'd like if you'd like, or if you're interested in this for the spring, please reach out to me. And summer application will open in early spring. Next slide, please. Connecting students to companies through both of these programs helps Maryland companies in their efforts to expand globally. Companies have continued to work with the center in other capacities, such as consulting programs or live cases, and have also brought on former interns in full or part-time capacities. Here are 2 testimonials from 2 company representatives that we've worked with in the past and who have also utilized other resources by the organizations represented today. Next slide, please. Finally, we invite you to the Maryland Business Adapts Roundtable this spring. Maryland Business Adapts was created to recognize Maryland industry for their resilience in overcoming the challenges presented by the COVID-19 pandemic. Companies are selected through a competitive nomination process, and they have case studies written to showcase their industry stories and highlight insights for topics like minimizing business risk or preparation for operational changes. These case studies are shared during a roundtable in the spring where folks such as yourselves can learn from one another, hear from a major Maryland company. Last year we had McCormick represent, and you could further develop your skills as well as network with other companies. We hope you join us this spring. Date is to be determined. However, we will share widely once confirmed. Thank you for your time today and happy to take any questions about. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Marina. So that concludes the presentations for today's event. We are open to answering any questions you may have. I do not see any in the chat, but please and ask a question if you do have one. Just looking for any hands. All right. Well, I don't see any immediate questions here, but of course, we will be able to share the slide deck. Marina, I believe you put in the chat that that would go out next week. Yes, we will be making the slides available, and that will be with the recording as well. Marina, we did get one
Yes, we'll
question.
include the slides and the in the recording of the webinar.
Great. Okay, so that will go out to everyone who's here today. And then if you think of questions or if you have more detailed or questions specific to your business that you just don't want to ask publicly, you're free to reach out to any of us. We're happy to answer those. So one thing I will mention, there's also an evaluation for this event that will come out also next week, Marina, with the evaluation.
Yes, and it'll also be posted. It's posted in the chat right now.
Great. So that's in the chat. So feel free to please fill out the evaluation for this event. And otherwise, thank you to all of our speakers. Really appreciate your time, especially Tim and Robert for taking the time out of your busy days to give that company perspective. I know that's really valuable for for companies who are thinking about exporting. So thanks everyone, and I hope you have a great afternoon.
Thanks, team. Thanks, Jessica.